In today's video, we will be learning how to create water scenes and we will also be creating puddles all inside Daz Studio. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Palmy and I'm here to help you, to guide you on your Daz Studio journey to help you create your dream 3D renders. So we're continuing the theme of into the intermediate phase. We are trying to move away from the beginner phase now. We still have the beginner's mindset, that is that we are always learning. But we want to move into that intermediate phase now. We want to start pushing ourselves, pushing our limits. We need to start progressing further, and that's what we're doing in these next few tutorials. So we're going to be looking at water here, and we're going to be looking at creating our own water. So in terms of our water scenes, so there are a lot of water scenes that you can buy from the Daz Studio store, and I'm going to show you how you can actually create your own water. So you don't have to go and buy those water scenes if you don't want to. You can actually create your own. I'm going to help you to do that as well. But before we get to that, I want to show you what my water scenes used to look like, right? The beginner phase water scenes. When you have no knowledge about what you're doing with Daz Studio, you're kind of attempting to do this. This is what my first water scene looked like. So, as you all know, I created a graphic novel called Tiger Dragon's Rebirth. It's a superhero graphic novel. And I had an edition 1 and edition 1 of this. So this is edition 1. What the render looked like. So don't pay attention to the characters. You don't need to worry about that. Look at the actual water here. This is the water. Now some of your water may look like this, right? If you're brand new to Daz Studio and you're trying to create your own water, it may look something like this. But this is my attempt, right? My attempt of doing it. So I went away, did a lot of practice, did a lot of learning, and I managed to create a better version. So I created an edition 2 of Tiger Dragon's Rebirth, which has got much better artwork, right? Much high quality artwork. So this is edition 2. Now you can see a great drastic improvement with the water here. We have specularity coming off the top here that you would see. We have the ripples as well, right? It just looks so much better compared to this. This looks very amateur, very ugly. Something that any beginner would probably create, right? If you don't go and buy those scenes, if you try to create it yourself, this is what it will look like. So if your water looks like this, by the end of this tutorial, your water is going to look something like this. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to help you to progress and get to that next level. So let's get started with making this water scene and going through and understanding how to create these water scenes. So I'm going to be talking about two methods. I'm discussing two methods. I'm going to do method 1 first, and then I'll show you method 2. So method 1 is basically using a primitive plane to create our water. And so we need to create a primitive plane. So we go to create here and we go to primitive. Okay, and type is plane. The size doesn't matter. The divisions don't matter because we're going to be adjusting the size. So the divisions don't matter. So we can do accept. There's our teeny tiny 10. Oh, by the way, this scene here is a free scene that comes with Daz Studio if you want to follow along. If you go to Smart Content tab and Environments, it's this one here, Preload. If you want to use it, you can follow along, or you can use your own scene there. So here is my plane here. I'm going to just click on here and just call it water plane. Okay. And then what I want to do, I want to literally resize it. So I'm going to scale it in the parameters tab here. I'm just going to scale this. So I'm going to go pretty big. Something like 10,000. Okay, let's pull that back a bit. Okay. We can go whatever size you want, right? I can go like 5,000 if I wanted to. It doesn't really matter too much what size you go. As long as it's adequate for your needs, right? Whatever you're trying to create, it's adequate to create that water plane. So let's do the IRAY preview. Okay, here's the IRAY preview, and you can see at the moment there's nothing there. There's no water or anything like that. It is just basically a plain sheet, right? A plain sheet with the IRAY shader, the default IRAY shader attached to it. So what we need to do first is we need to change the properties of this primitive into the properties of water, and there's a quick method to do that. And if we go to the surfaces tab here. We go to presets, go to editor first, click on our plane here for the surface of that. Go to presets, expand shaders, expand IRAY, and then over here we've got liquids, a section called liquids. Now we're going to use this water shader here. This is going to just add those settings for us. I'm going to talk you through those settings anyway so you understand what they are. so you can understand what changes have been made. So let's double click that. So you will see an immediate change here. The immediate change is we have got our water, our plane here, right? Our water plane here. It doesn't look very watery at the moment. It will do shortly. So let's go to our editor tab here. Let's have a look what changes it's made. So the first change is made. It's the base color. It's changed it to a slightly darker gray color. So instead of being white like it normally is, it's changed to that one there. This doesn't really matter too much in the context of the water, because once we add the next settings, this setting will not even do anything, because the other settings are going to override the base color setting. So this we can leave it as it is. So the next one we've got is refraction index. So this is the index of the refraction. So there is a tutorial I did earlier on, very early on. It's called the glass shader tutorial. I'll put the link here at the top right. If you watch that, I do talk about the refraction index there, a bit more detail. So you can watch that as well. And I go into about the properties of glass and things like that. So you can create those different types of materials from anything. And that's what the refraction index does. So check out that tutorial there. If you're new, go and check it out. Highly recommend you do that. Add to your knowledge, your bank of knowledge, so you can use that in whatever you want to do inside Daz Studio. So the refraction index is 1.33. And if you do a Google search, refraction index, you will find a lot of list of numbers. And 1.33 is the refraction index of water. And I believe 1.5 is the refraction index of glass. And there's some other things. So as you move towards the different higher values, you get different properties of glass, like perspex and things like that. So the more you go into it, so 1.33 is correct. Okay, so that's why that's changed to 1.33. Refraction weight is basically when I put it to 0, you'll see what happens. That goes back to being normal. So refraction weight just makes things see-through. Okay, so you can use this for anything, clothing, any props, anything you want to make see-through. You whack that to 1 or close to 1, it'll start to go see-through, okay? And obviously water is see-through, so refraction weight needs to be 1, which is the highest setting. And that's why our water, that's why this is see-through. We can see to the bottom here. Okay, so what we need to do now is we haven't, at the moment, the color of the water is linked to the color of the glossy color. So because this option here, share glossy inputs, is on, that means that the glossy color here is the same as our watercolor. We don't want that. We want 100% control over the watercolor. So we want to turn this to off. Okay. And as we scroll down, you'll see a few new options. You'll see refraction colors come available and refraction roughness. So refraction color is literally going to be the color of the water. So click here and choose the color of your water. So you can choose whatever you like. We'll go for this kind of bluey color. Okay, so we've got that color there. Fantastic. That's our color there. Now, again, it doesn't still look like water at the moment. Let me just bring this up so you can see a bit more what it actually looks like. Okay. Let's bring this up a bit more higher. There we go. Let's bring it high still. Higher still. That'll do. All right. So you can see it's clearly green, green here. The kind of turquoise color that we've chosen there, right? You can have any color you want, whatever color you want your water to be. I'm gonna go for a slightly greenish color. Okay, so we can now choose a color of water. We've got 100% control over that. Fantastic. Now, the problem with our water is that at the moment, it just looks like a thin sheet of like basically see-through paper. And we haven't got the ripples, the kind of waves, all right? So how do we do that? The way we do that is we add the base bump, okay? So base bump and normal map. So I'm gonna click on the arrow for the base bump here. I'm gonna go to browse, all right? And on my desktop folder, I have a folder called water. And this link for this is going to be in the description down below. So you get all these textures. These are the ones I've downloaded. They're all free. They're all commercial free. So don't worry about that. These puddles are something we're going to be looking at later on in the tutorial as well. So hang around for that. I'm going to show you how to create puddles. So these are the ones that I created myself, these textures. So what we want to do is we want the base bump map for water, so we can have those waves. So we're going to go to seamless textures here, and these seamless textures were created using GIMP to create the seamless textures. I'm going to choose this one here because this is the one I like. You can have a play around with each of these, but this is the one that I like here. Okay, so now we've got our ripples, as you can see now, right? We've got some deformation, so to speak, of the water plane here. Fantastic. So what we can do with the base bump is currently set to 1. We can go higher if you want to. Now I generally go higher because I like a bit more base bump to be higher on my scene. So you can choose what you want. I'm gonna go 10. 10 looks okay. Yeah, 10 looks okay for now. 10 looks fine. Fantastic. And I'm also going to add a normal map, which is going to accentuate or add to that the map there. So we have got in our water, we've got normal maps here. Now these normal maps are just these seamless textures, but they created a normal map using Photoshop, but you can also use like GIMP to create normal maps if you want to do that. So I'm going to pick any one of these. It doesn't really matter. It's a case of trying, right? Which one looks good. Let's have a look at that one, see what that does. Okay, that looks pretty good. I like the kind of like waviness going on here. The waviness, even if that's the word. That doesn't look too bad. Okay, cool. So let's just drag this here as well, just to fill that space up there. There we go. That looks pretty good. So what we're going to do next is we can change the tiles. Okay, so the tiles here, horizontal tiles, vertical tiles, because these maps are not like 4K or 8K or higher than 4K, we're going to have some resolution issues maybe in terms of the resolution of this water is not going to be good once we get the lighting going and everything. So we need to consider that. So one way we can cheat the system or kind of like fake the high resolutionness is to increase the tiles. This only works well if your textures are seamless. If they're not seamless, you'll have like a line going through your water here. You'll see it very easily, like there'll be a line going through, and you'll have to adjust the offset here or the vertical offset to not show that in your scene when you are doing a render. So let's have a look at the horizontal tiles. I'm going to discover here. It's all about discovery because these tiles, right, these settings for the tiles depend on the size of your plane, depend on the base bump, the normal map you're using. It depends on a lot of factors. So I can't give you a value and say, hey, just use 10 for horizontal tiles and use 5 for vertical tiles. It ain't going to work like that. You've got to discover and see how that works in your scene. So let's try 5, see what that looks like. Okay, so that's not what I wanted now because my waves are now going this direction, right? Going from up to down. I don't want that, so that's not going to work. Vertical tiles. Okay, so that's okay. Let's try horizontal tiles. Let's even this up a bit. Let's try 3. And let's put that to 4 actually. Yeah, that looks okay. That looks okay for now. Let's bring that up. Let's do 2 actually. 2 and 4. 1 and 4? No. 5 and 4. Okay. We'll stick with that. 3 and 4 looks okay. Alright, so that's fine. So again, discovery, play with those settings, see what looks good to you. This may not look good to you, that's absolutely fine. Just find what works for you. So let's go back up here. There are a few settings that we need to go through as well. So with the glossy layered weight, there is the glossy roughness and the glossy reflectivity. So if you want something that's very reflective, you can whack it up to 1 if you want to. Yeah, sure, no problem, you can do that. If you want to do that, there is no issue with that. If you want a more reflective surface, whoops. I'll put that to 0.5 again. Glossy roughness. So if I put that up, it's gonna basically turn to like ice, right? Like a sheet of ice. That's not what I want. But I do want a little bit of glossy roughness to when we do the lighting, for it to hit that lighting and give you that the shine. You know those the spots that we had here, right? A bit of these the specularity here. That's going to give us a bit of that. So I'm going to do very low values, 0.1, right? I don't want high values for that. The next thing we can do as well is the IRAY. Now the IRAY is basically the coloration of the water. Sometimes when sunlight goes through water, you will see like a rainbow effect in the water. That's what the IRAY is. So generally I choose something like 75, 73, something like that. And that will give us that coloration as well of the water. Okay. So 73, 75, play around with this setting as well. I mean, there's no like one number that's the best. It really depends on a number of factors, like I said earlier. Let's go down. And the other one we can play with is top coat. So top coat is the highest layer in in this IRAY shader. So anything you do in the top coat is basically going to overpower whatever you done underneath. So for example, as soon as I turn on top coat, you will see that this goes very shiny, right? Because we've just added top coat, and that's fine. And again, we've got top coat roughness. Again, we can add small values for that as well. So 0.1 works good. All right. You don't have to have top coat of 1 if you don't want it. You can have like 0.5. But the top coat color does need to be white because we want that specularity, that shininess for it. So it needs to be white, as does glossy as well, glossy color as well in this instance. Okay, so I'm going to leave that as 1. So all these settings are good. Oh, and the last setting we can look at is top coat thin film index of refraction. So this is very similar to the setting that we had here somewhere, where there is refractive index, right? It's the same setting in terms of the values. So the value of water is 1.33. So this should actually be 1.33 as well. Okay, so now we get to actually play around with the lighting and the camera angles. Now this does depend on the camera angles, the lighting, the bump settings, the horizontal tiles. There are a lot of factors that contribute to the way your water will look. So let's go to, I've positioned these cameras already. So I've got camera 1 here, okay, and I've got camera 2 here. They're already pre-positioned. Okay, as you can see, we're getting that specularity here, right, with these settings that we've done. Okay, camera 2. So it is a case of finding your camera angles, putting it there. All right, so let's say if this was going to be my camera angle, I was going to do a rendering this camera angle. That's set now. And now I'm going to work my lighting around that. All right, this is set. My camera angle is not moving. I need to work my lighting around that. So let's go to the render settings. And here we're using sun sky here. So all I want to do is just move the dome rotation and see if we can get anything. Okay, this looks pretty cool. All right, I like this kind of this we're getting here. This this shine here, and the shine comes here. That looks pretty good as well. I can go to SS sun disk intensity and like whack that up a bit higher. So you can go something like 3 maybe. So to give us more brightness, okay, get more specularity. Let me go back to camera number 2. What does that look like now with camera 2? Okay, it doesn't look that good with camera 2 now because you can see the brightness is coming through here. So again, depends on your camera, again, where you have it positioned, what kind of lighting you're going to need. Okay, so that doesn't look too bad. Maybe we could change the settings here for the tiles maybe, which is probably what we are having here. Go to camera 2. Right now it's going the wrong way. So go to 1 and 3 maybe. Okay. Camera 1. 0.5 for tiles. There we go. Right, so that's what it looks like there. Whoops. Let's go back to camera 2 again. That looks better. Okay, I've got some of the shine that I want here. So again, I have to play with the tiles here. It is one of those tricky things, folks. You need to play around discovery. It is a lot of discovery when you're doing this. So there you go. That doesn't look too bad. Right, that was with the sun sky. What does that look like with the dome? Right, dome only. So the dome that I'm using here is going to be the Shanghai I can't remember the Shanghai something bundle, I think it is. Now this dome here is from HDRI Labs. I'll put the link in the description down below for that as well, and you can see what effect it's having with the colors of that. Right, we get some really beautiful colors. The effects, we're getting some wonderful water effects with that HDRI. With this multi-tool. Look at this lovely effects, and this is all to do with our settings that we did for the water. These wonderful colors here from the HDRI. So it really does depend on that, on your the light you're using, the direction, and HDRIs are very, very good for this indeed. So I mean, look at that. That's just absolutely beautiful there. So you can get some really, really cool effects once you get a HDRI that is looking very, very, very good HDRI with the colors here. So that's all there is to doing the water plane. It's not that difficult really when you think about it. However, let's move on to method 2, which is my preferred method, which is I really do like this method a lot because I feel like the water is just so much better. So let's just go back to camera number 3 here. And let's move on to method number 2. Now, method number 2 is just using a cube instead, a cube primitive. That's all we're going to use instead, right? A cube primitive. So we're going to go to create, new primitive. We're going to choose cube instead of a plane. Settings don't matter, divisions don't matter. 1 meter is fine because we're going to increase the size anyway. Do accept. Okay. So this is my water cube. Go to parameters, and I just want to scale the Z and X here, so something like 5,000 and then 5,000, just enough to cover everything. Okay, and I'm going to move this up a bit as well. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to copy the settings we had, our IRAY settings for the water plane, and just paste them to the water cube. So I'm going to select my water plane here. I'm going to go to surfaces, editor. I'm going to highlight everything in that surface for the water plane. I'm going to right click here, copy that surface. I'm going to go back to my scene, click on my cube, go back to surfaces, editor, and my water cube. I'm going to right click and paste those settings. Okay, and let's do our IRAY preview now. You're going to see something absolutely amazing, right? Now, you will notice straight away that it just looks so much better, right? The cube looks so much better than the actual plane by itself. All right, this is the cube by itself. Now, obviously, we need to do some issues with the tiling here. It's too straight, these lines, very thin. So I need to go to the tiling and really change that. So let's go back to 1 here. Okay, actually I want to go, we'll go 3 again, and we'll go 5 here, and we're going to go 3 here. Let's go 4. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. Okay, so let me go to camera number 1 here, see how that looks. Okay, so that's the water cube there. You will notice that the color of, if we go back to sun sky here, you will notice the color of the water looks so much more realistic. Okay, it looks more, that turquoisey color looks so much more realistic. And the reason is because, so that's the water cube there. Okay, this is the water plane. All right, you see it's a bit more darker color, more murky. We haven't done anything different. The reason why the water cube looks more realistic in terms of its color is because now we have an object that has got a volume, right? It's volume, a cube, right? So a cube is a 3D object. It's got volume now. So therefore, when the light comes and hits that, we're getting that the higher color there, the higher contrast of color, which is why I love the cube version better than the actual plain water plane, because we're getting a better color here, and it just looks so much better in terms of the color of the water, and that's gonna really accentuate your scene, right? When people see the color of your water, they're gonna be amazed and be like, how did you get that so realistic? And it's just one of those things where you understand that this just looks amazing, right? It just looks really nice, and I would be happy with a render like this. Let's go have a look at number 2. What does that look like? All right, that looks pretty nice as well. I like the lighting coming off here. That looks good. So yeah, with the water cube again, this all the horizontal tiles depends on your bump map and the normal map that you use. But apart from that, these settings are pretty good, right? Even if I change the refraction color now of my water to something a bit more what we're used to, a bit more blue color, it's still going to look really good blue, right? We're going to get those really nice colors of blue, like light color, then a bit darker here, lighter color here. It just looks really good because we have that volume now, right? Our cube is now volume. So that's all there is to it. It's not as difficult as it seems. Those are the settings. You don't really need to. We can play around with some of these settings to see what you like. But this is the settings I use. Very similar settings to what I used for this one here. Obviously, I had the sun coming down here, and we had the specular coming off here because of that sun. And apart from that, that's it, right? And you can see here the waves are very thin here, so I probably should have made them thicker. But these are all things we learn as we progress on our journey. So that's water for you. You do your water plane using a water cube. Have a go at that. And now we're going to move on to the next section, which is going to be how we create our puddles, and that's going to be a lot of fun as well. So let's move on to our next segment, which is creating puddles. Now the properties of a puddle are slightly different to the properties of what we just created earlier. So we're going to have to think about this slightly differently. However, some of the settings we have do apply. So just before I start, you can follow me. If you want to follow me in this tutorial, this environment is free with Daz Studio. If you go to small content and environments and type in bus here in this filter section, the search bar, you'll find it here. If you want to follow along, you can do that. So we can't use cube because we need a flat object, and the only flat primitive we can have is a primitive plane. So we're going to go to create new primitive, and we're going to choose plane. Size is fine. We're going to increase that anyway, and divisions is 1. That's absolutely fine. It doesn't matter if you had more divisions. It's not going to make any difference in this case. So puddle. Okay, so let's bring it here, centralize it a bit. Okay, it doesn't have to be like exactly, I mean, obviously it doesn't need, make sure it's not super high. It needs to be just slightly above. So something like, I think 2 is okay. We can zoom in a bit more to see that. Cool. Okay, so let's do the IRAY preview. All right. So the first thing we need to do is we need to do those settings that we did last time. So we need to go to surfaces, click on our puddle in the editor tab, presets, and just get that water surface, right? That's what we need to do first. All right, so now we've got like a thin sheet of paper that's watery, almost like Perspex glass or glass. Looks like glass. And what we need to do is we need to cut this out, right? We need to cut this area out. And so we need to go to our cutout setting. Here it is. So we're going to click on this arrow here. We're going to browse, and we're just going to come out of here. So these are these maps we're going to be using, these texture maps. So these, I can right click these. I'll show you these, what they look like. So these are ones that I created earlier. They're really, really good. And not all of them are great. Like this one's not very good because it's too square on. It shouldn't be square on. But we can go through these, and I'll go through these very shortly. So the one we're going to be using is number 4 here. So I want to use number 4, and I'll use number 10 afterwards because I really like number 10 as well. Just to show you what it looks like. So we're going to cut it out. Now you can't see it yet, all right, because we've got some very harsh lighting here. Let me just sort out the lighting. Just there. Okay, it's there. So what we need to do as well is we need to give it that fake bumpness. So again, bump, base bump, and we're going to actually use the same one, puddle 4. Okay, to give it that bump. Okay, and some of the settings we're going to use are very, very similar. So just going to have a look at this. That's absolutely fine. Again, we need to share glossy inputs. We got to turn that to off, right? We want our own control over the color of that water. Now, when you see a puddle, generally a puddle is normally darker. It's never like see-through. So we're going to go for a slightly gray color here. All right, there it is. So it looks like it's wet. And the other thing we need to do is we need to, when you see puddles, generally puddles, like I said, aren't see-through. You get that reflectivity, okay? So there's less refraction, there's more reflectivity, which means that our refraction roughness, we want to increase that, okay? Now we don't want to increase it, all the way to 1. We want to increase it, 0.5, 0.6, something like that is fine. Obviously play around with this setting, how you see fit, because when we have puddles, we have the reflection, and that reflection is going to be the majority of what we see in a puddle. Again, we can have obey, same setting, obey, 75, 73, right, play around with that, just get the really, really cool obey effect. What I'm going to do is I am going to just increase the size of this so we can see better. Let's make it into a big puddle. There we go. Alright. How does that look now? Does that look a bit more like a puddle? I think it does. One thing it is missing, I think it needs a bit more bump. So let me go to the surfaces tab. Let's put that bump setting to something like 10. How does that look? Yeah, that looks a bit better. Might be a bit too much, but that's fine. Okay. That looks okay. So we've got our puddle here, right? Now we've got our fake bump as well, which is great. We could add some top coat if you really wanted to give it the, more specularity. If you wanted to make it a bit more, that fake wetness, if you wanted to do that, you could do that. Of course, we can add some roughness here as well, to give it a bit more. I probably wouldn't want that much top coat weight. Right, now it looks a bit icy, but that looks like a water puddle, right? Doesn't look too bad in terms of a water puddle. And now let's play around with the lighting. So remember to make this puddle look good, it all depends on lighting as well and your camera position. So as I move the camera around, if I just centralize this as I move around it, you can see the water will change, right? Depending on where our camera is, right? What angle we're at. Let me just turn that off so you can see. Right, depending on what angle we are at, the water will look different. See how it changes as I move the camera angle? So camera angle is very important, something to consider when you're doing your renders. It's not just a case of putting the camera there. See how that water looks now? We're very low down, a lot of specularity there, a lot of glossiness. So you've got to consider that as well. So we can play around with the lighting. So we've got sun sky here, and this will obviously change the way it will look. It will change the way it will look. Dome rotation. Alright, if I put the sun disk intensity up again to 3, it's going to change the way it looks. See, that looks very, very realistic. And we didn't do much, we just changed a few settings. Really, really cool. Okay, let's do it with the dome, just I want to show you what that looks like with the dome only. Alright, so we can move that around. And we get these really cool reflections now. Okay, because that's what the dome looks like. So if I put the dome on, you can see what it looks like, right? We're getting that color here from here, reflection going on here. That's how a puddle would look. If you saw a puddle and you're walking past it, it would have the reflection of whatever lighting is around it. Okay, obviously that's very, very high reflection because of the colors we have. So we could probably tone some of this down, tone some of the, maybe reduce the top weight. Okay. And then probably even reduce the refraction roughness a bit. Because it's too much. Alright, so those settings you can play around with, things like that. Even the refraction weight, we can bring that down a bit. Okay, if you think it's too much, you could do that as well. So that's what that looks like. Let's go back to Sun Sky. Okay, let's put that top coat weight back to, I think I was 0.5. All right, cool. All right, so let's, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to copy that. So edit, duplicate that node. All right, I've got a second one here. So I'm just going to shift that over here. Let me just shift the first one further down here and the second one here. And this one I'm going to show you with the number 10. So we're just going to go into the settings here and we're going to go to number 10. So I'm just going to change, keep everything as it is. All I'm going to do is change the bass bump to number 10. Here it is. And the bass bump and the cutout to number 10 as well. All right, there it is. All right, so as we move the light, okay, you'll see, as I move my camera angle as well, you'll see that starts to look like water, right? It looks like the squiggly lines here and everything going on. That doesn't look too bad, right? That doesn't look too bad at all. So we can change the settings and say, well, you know, top coat weight is probably a bit too high. And you can say, well, actually the refraction probably needs to increase a bit more. So these settings you really do need to play around with these settings and see what works. Turn out some glossy roughness as well, a bit there. Okay, there we go. And I think there is another one here that looks really good as well. I believe it is number 9, I think, yeah. Go to number 9. Change the way that looks. Okay. And if we go to dome only, all right, you can see the way that looks in terms of the water. So this is really, really good. Have a play around with this. Remember, link is in the description for all of these textures, and you see what you can do. Have a play around. So don't forget to leave a comment down below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell and the like button as well if you like the video. In the comments, let me know what else you want me to look at as well. I think next week we'll be looking at underwater scenes, because I do have an underwater scene in my graphic novel Tiger Dragon the Rebirth. So I want to help you guys out with that as well. Link in the description down below for Tiger Dragon the Rebirth, an entertaining and meaningful superhero story. Go check it out. You can read the first chapter for free. And also, I've got my Ko-fi link as well, where you can do the donations. It's very similar to Patreon. I do have a membership on there as well that's going through, and I want to dig deeper into doing more detailed things like this with you on that platform as well. So check that out as well. And I'll see you all in next week's video. And remember, if you want to live your dream life, you must commit to mastery.